My senior senator from Utah, Senator Hatch, for his leadership on the balanced budget amendment over the years. He's been a consistent and stalwart advocate for the cause of amending the Constitution in such a way that we restrict Congress's ability to engage in deficit spending. It's the practice of perpetual reckless deficit spending that has created this almost $15 trillion debt that we're now dealing with. It's this practice of perpetual excessive deficit spending that has fueled the expansion of the federal government far beyond the limits that the Founding Fathers had in mind and far beyond the natural limits that this government can handle. It's important to remember that we're now spending, through the federal government, more than 25% of our annual GDP. More than a quarter of every dollar that moves through the American economy is consumed by Washington. This is a problem. This is a problem, and it's unfortunately not something that is at all consistent with where we have been historically as Americans. We have to remember that for about the first 140 years of our republic's existence under the Constitution, our federal spending was nowhere near this high as a percentage of GDP. Between 1790 and the early 1930s, the federal government tended to spend between 1.5 and 4% of GDP every single year, year in and year out. There were two blips, two exceptions, one during the Civil War, one during World War I, and during its immediate aftermath. But after both of those cycles passed, we went right back to where we had been before. That started to change in the 1930s, and we've been on a gradual upswing almost ever since then, to where we're now above 25%. But it gets worse. By the year 2035, we are predicted to be spending almost 34% of gross domestic product through the federal government every single year. As a result, the federal government will be commanding a very substantial portion of the American economy. That makes every American less free. The more government spends, the more money it has access to. And the more it borrows on our behalf, the less free we become, the less individual liberty we have to spend our money, to use our resources, to devote our lives in those pursuits that we would choose. That's why the Cut, Cap, and Balance pledge is necessary to support individual liberty, to protect our most basic freedoms, is because it will protect us from the inexorable growth of the government. And what it says is that we're at an important time in American history, a time when we're being asked to extend our debt limit once again, a time when we're being asked to say, yeah, we're going to give the federal government authority to borrow even more money against our unborn children and grandchildren. This is a problem. Now, one reason why we're willing to sign this pledge, we're willing to say, okay, we've been put on a path when the government's spending at this rate. We can't halt that spending immediately. We're willing to consider raising the debt limit, but if and only if certain conditions have been satisfied to make sure that this doesn't continue in perpetuity. We need cuts. We need some kind of significant cuts to our spending right now. We need some kind of statutory spending cap to put us on a gradual glide path toward a balanced budget. And most importantly, we have to amend the U.S. Constitution so as to say that this will not continue in perpetuity, and future Congresses won't be able to do what Senator Hatch referred to a minute ago, which is exempt itself out of statutory spending caps once it has adopted them. We can't bind a future Congress to cut $2 trillion over the course of a decade or more because we can't commit a future Congress to do what we want it to do, unless, of course, we amend the Constitution, which is why we have to do that right now. This is essential to economic progress in America. This is essential to economic well-being and to individual liberty in America. I'd love to talk to anyone about this who wants to. I've invited Utahns who may be in town, and I invite anyone within the sound of my voice, here or elsewhere, to join me at my office this Wednesday, today, and every Wednesday at 3:30, where we have what we refer to as a Jell-O bar. Utah consumes more Jell-O per capita than any state in the union. We serve up Jell-O, and we'll talk to you about the Cut, Cap, and Balance pledge. Thank you very much.